The seven-step technique can be considered a way to try to obtain from the collaborator the recognition of helper. Its use, however, requires that those who use it are authentically interested and able to constitute the other as a subject, aware of the complex systemic configuration of any of our similar. To give a negative feedback is to open a crisis. No point beating about the bush. Guiding, controlling, going with the crossing of the crisis is, for the boss, a valuable opportunity to get what he needs most, namely the acknowledgement of helper by the collaborator. Obtaining this recognition is the strategic goal of every day, of any action involving the action or the thought of the collaborator. Without forgetting that the boss himself is struggling with the negative feedback to solve which of my codes, evidently, didn't work. How come my collaborator derailed despite my previous speeches? This is an extremely difficult point, and is not by chance that very often it's simply skipped, ignored. The lack is on the part of the collaborator. It's he or she to have to correct. I am fine. But the two operations are distinct and must be kept separate. One operation is the review of my conduct, of my codes, and I will have to find the appropriate way to put it in place, maybe with a coach, why not, or with an experienced colleague, or a mentor, a senpai. Another operation is to have to do with my collaborator at this turning point, where, technically, it's my collaborator to have done what he was not supposed to do. He used these codes, obtaining an unsatisfactory result. Of course he knows it. He or she knows it. And like me, he or she also has to do with the need to find a suitable solution, which turns off the alarm launched by the nociceptive system. Solutions that must take into account not only the micro-performance, wearing, not wearing the PPE, but also the evolution of the interaction with me, his or her boss, with colleagues, with his collaborator, and more. 3 are the main things to do, according to the 7-step technique. They also make sense for us systemics. First, make explicit and shared the good reason that makes the obtained result unacceptable. Second, get from the collaborator the action plan, his or her proposals. Third, help to make them happen. What is a good reason, an armored reason, that neither I nor my collaborator can dispute? Better the boss that gives negative feedback identifies it before taking the field. We need to prepare properly. In the case of the unworn PPE, is all too easy. The armored reason is that health, integrity, if not the life of the collaborator, are at stake. What proposal will our collaborator ever make? We don't know. It could just grumble, okay, from now on I always use it, so also to help others to do the same. But it could also propose lowering the temperature of the workplace by 2 degrees, so that the sweat under the helmet is not excessive, that it doesn't not get on the eyes, clouding the side and taking the risk of losing a hand. In any case, it's crucial that the collaborator put his codes into play. What means help for the realization? All we can do. Accepting the possibility that this can prove extremely challenging, that we will encounter obstacles difficult to overcome. And I convince them, those of the budget, to spend more to better air the workplace. A battle that we will fight alongside the collaborator while remaining loyal servants of the house. But there, in the moment of the crossing, the help is to give support to the idea of the collaborator and to provide positive feedback on the new codes to use, not so much and not only with the words, but with our contentment for having crossed honorably the difficulties of the negative feedback, and for the good ideas of the collaborator. Of course, it's the emotional system to say it in the language and with the codes that are its own. Better to remember that the emotions cannot pretend. We can't fake emotions. The mirror neurons do not fail in distinguishing which emotion we are feeling and others are currently feeling. Did we abandon the willing manager called the boss of the boss? Certainly no. His surveys, his observations on the technique are acceptable. Even for him, the escaped point seems to concern the recognition, authentic, of helper by the coachee. It tells you that the technique doesn't work with these collaborators, namely, that your codes do not work. They are not helpful, although he recognizes that they have worked with him. Repeating, re-specifying the steps of the procedure is not wrong in itself. To develop any skill, often repetition is useful. In this case, the evidence is more on the part of the emerging by the coachee of the preference accorded to hasty and interventionist codes, which put in check the steps of the technique. The defense of our own codes is systemic physiology. They have worked so far. It takes good reasons and valid alternatives to change, to integrate or replace them with others, more or less as for the employee dealing with the PPE. In this case, can we use the 7-step technique? In part, yes, at least as control checklist. More critical is to work on the defense of former codes. Also, since we have no visibility on the analog of the armored reason that motivates the coachee to change his code, say, and motivate the coach to help change. Why should the coachee modify his codes? And even when authentically it tries, in this case doesn't seem to have tried a lot, if it fails, what can help the success? But this is a new case.